Welcome to self-discoverywisdom.com, formerly known as Self-Discovery Media. On these podcasts, you're going to hear people who speak from the heart. They've taken the journey in life. Many things have happened to them, but they've changed it to happening for them. And in their strength, their courage, they've discovered their abilities and their wisdom, and they are now sharing it here with you. Do enjoy each show. We bring it to you with love and knowing that it's going to help you on your journey of life. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Building Your Business right here at self-discoverywisdom.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my wonderful guest today is Michael Furlot. We're going to be talking about your finances. And I know before you start running, he says he's a master of the financial seas of life, but he says if people do not plan their let me get this right. People don't plan to fail, but they fail to plan. Now, let's let that sink in, because very often we don't plan. Things fail because we do not do so. What kind of plans can we put in place? How can we even actually change our mindset around money and look at it in a way that it serves us long term and not something that's just for the moment? He's going to focus on having habits that are, that are good for us, the good habits, not the bad ones. The question is, how can we change poor habits into good ones? We're going to discuss simple structures and ideas of all ages, no matter what their financial situation is. Regardless of someone's incomes, the rules of managing one's finances are the same. Whether you are a university student, retired, the rules are the same when it comes to managing your financial affairs. You need to look at the rules as though they were tools. And like all tools, you have to learn how to use them. The outcome will probably be different than what you were expecting. We're going to learn through example and experience, and more comfortable way of learning through experiences for others. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. Michael is a lifelong licensed professional since 1996 and brings over 30 years of experience with financial planner. He's successfully completed a certified financial planning program in 2004 and earned his certificate senior advisor designation in 2005. And he has a whole list of experience here. So we're really going to be tapping in today into all that he has to offer and all that we need to pay attention to. But that statement, if we fail to plan, is very, very true. But most of the time, because people are not finance savvy, they think it's very, very complicated. They think they need to have a big portfolio, and they don't realize whether it's just the piggy bank or the actual bank. It really got to have the same attitude around it no matter what. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Well, thanks for having me here, Sarah. As I was listening to your comments, I can't help but think where I'd like to start basically as a foundation for the rest of this presentation. A statement I've often used in the past is that there is no income anyone is capable of earning that they are not also capable of outspending.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true with all of us. People go somewhere and they find out that they came up a little bit short.
Yeah.
They have to cut back on maybe some of their aspirations and expectations because they came up short. And that's from a lack of planning. Like I say, people don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. Whether you're looking at managing $1,000, $1,000,000, the rules are pretty much the same. So, like I said, there is no income you can earn that you're not capable of outspending.
Mm-hmm.
And people develop bad habits. Bad habits just naturally happen. Good habits are deliberate, and it takes practice and training. They just don't happen. And so, as contemplating this presentation today, I was thinking about, well, we all pick up bad habits, and they're
Mm-hmm.
usually, well, they're not intentional,
Mm-hmm.
but we
Mm-hmm.
do. And that sort of transfers over to our managing our finances as well. Where did we get our financial training? You know, so I recall just a couple of years ago, the graduating class at the high school, I went up and I gave a presentation with every 45 minutes or an hour, I got a whole new group because there's so many of them. But nonetheless, I just basically gave them a quick overview of financial planning. They were so upset. I thought they were going to go militant on the teachers. Why are we only learning this now?
Hmm.
And it was such basic foundation rules that we should all be aware of. But I'm going to keep coming back to that. There is no income we can earn that we're not capable of outspending.
Hmm.
And it's in the outspending that gets us into trouble. Whether people
Yes.
are using their credit cards and overextending themselves, and then they get into a big problems. But you need to know the rules
Yeah.
in order to realize the successes. And as I said before, good habits take practice. They have to be deliberate, concise, project, uh, definable, and on purpose. You need to you need to decide that you're going to do it right. So people say, "Oh, I'm going to put a budget together." Well, yeah, that's good. But if you really get a strict budget and you stick to it, you're going to lose your friends. You're going to be miserable. It's difficult. It's
Hmm.
difficult. There's a rule in the business, or it's a saying in the business, that if you're living paycheck to paycheck and you receive a 10% income increase tomorrow, in 90 days, you will have adjusted your lifestyle upwards
Hmm.
to where you cannot live without that 10% anymore. And so I looked at that a while back. I think it was way back in 2004. I had a client who asked me to talk with one of their children, who was an adult child, who was making $1,400 a month. That's how much she was clearing at the time. And she said she had read David Chilton's book. Now, I had dinner with David Chilton up in Prince George years ago. Brilliant man, entertaining, um, good guy. But he said, the rule of 10%.
Hmm.
Put 10% of your savings
Yes.
aside. Again, if you said, yeah, I've never heard of that. I'm going to try it today. And you start today, you will be in financial ruin by the end of the month. Again, you're going to lose your friends. You're going to be miserable and nobody's going to talk to you. So I looked at that and I thought, she wants to save 10% of $1,400 a month. I thought, wow, ambitious. What a challenge. So I looked at the 10% rule. If it takes 90 days to adjust our lifestyle upwards, unintentionally, it just happens.
Hmm.
Again, good habits are deliberate. I thought,
Hmm.
how can we turn that around and save 10% without slitting our throats, so to speak?
Right.
And so I came up with a plan that's actually 5 months. It's not as easy as people would think. We can't just do it, flip the switch, and in 90 days we're saving. So I came up with a plan that spreads it over 10 months or 5 months, pardon me. And people that have done it have done very well. And I've given it to I have a template for that. And I give it to a few accountants. They say, brilliant. They love it for their clients that don't know how to save. They can't save. But
Yes.
the rule is very simple. We say pay yourself first. Have you ever heard
Hmm.
that expression?
Oh,
Pay
yes.
yourself first. Well, I'm a visual person. Everything what goes on in my head is a movie. There's always a movie going on in my head. I
Me
think
too.
you're the same, Sarah. Yeah, I got it.
Yes.
Okay, you bet. You bet. So I looked at there's a lineup when we get paid. If you're on a salary job and you get your paycheck, let's say on Friday, you get there and visually imagine a lineup of people standing in line to get the cash. First, there's the taxes, and then there's old age security, or no, pardon me, and there's Canada Pension Plan, EI, and so on and so on. And there's the rent and the car payment, the insurance, the gas, and the list goes on. And you're at the end of the line. You put yourself at the back, and you get up to the front of the line and say, "There's nothing left." Well, maybe next month. So you get
Yeah.
in line again, and the same cycle goes over and over and over because we're we're implementing bad habits. Put
Hmm.
yourself first. And so let's say someone is making, I'll just keep it nice and simple. Let's imagine someone's doing $20 an hour. And they're working a 40-hour week. And we're asking them to put 10% aside. That's equivalent to 4 hours a week.
Hmm.
Income of That's $80 a week. So if I went to a person making $20 a week and they hadn't started saving yet, say 10%, you're gonna start off with $80 a week. That's $320 a month. There's no way they can do it. They're
Hmm.
going to be they're going to get behind. They're just
Yes.
going to be a disaster. But if I said to, can you put a half hour of your wages aside for a few weeks anyway? $10 a week. Oh yeah, I can handle that.
Hmm.
And it starts, and then so to create, as I said before, good habits takes practice. It has to be deliberate. And so starting small and then gradually building into that 10%, people say, wow, that's incredible. I'm
Yes.
saving the money
Yes.
without compromising your lifestyle. For
Right.
instance, um, with with the first person I created this for, um, I had her get a library card. Back then in 2004, we used to rent videos. You remember that?
No, yes, I do.
Yeah. And that was her one vice a week was to rent videos. But to go to the library, you could rent videos for free.
Hmm.
And maybe you had to wait a month before the popular ones came up, but
Right.
still. And that was her one vice a week was to rent videos. The other thing was she had a car but no insurance and she couldn't afford the gas.
Hmm.
$1,400 a month. She had a debt to her mother. And I proposed the car was worth maybe 2,000. It was in good shape, ran well, but no insurance, no gas. And she owed her mom about $2,500 and really weighed heavily on her. So I talked to the mother. I said, you need another vehicle. And so she got rid of that debt and all that pressure. And then it just released.
Hmm.
So when we get rid of debt, we are a debt society.
Oh
We
my
live
God, are
in
we?
debt.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so easy, like, well, I don't have any money in the bank, but I got my credit card. Ching, ching, ching.
And it makes us feel rich. And it
Yeah,
makes us feel that we can abundantly spend until we get the bill. And then all we can afford to do is pay the interest and
that's right.
and not pay it down. And so the interest goes up and up and up, and then you're never paying it down, and it haunts you forever.
So when it comes to managing the money, paying down the debt, I often get people in here saying, Michael, we've really got ourselves into a bad situation. And I look at their debts and I say, okay, make minimum payments on your credit cards and attack the one that has the highest interest. And
Hmm.
the extra money, throw it at, and you get rid of it one at a time.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're looking at the whole picture, it's just overwhelming. If you just take a piece of it,
Yes.
piece at a time, eventually they'll get, again, it takes planning. It's not just going to happen. It has to be deliberate. And if people think, well, I can do this, I can do this, or I can do that, without a plan, I doubt it. And I'm not being facetious. I believe that it has to be deliberate and on purpose.
Well, it's a strategy that we need to follow in life. And I think it should start with the piggy bank with kids. At a certain age, start them with, um, you know, um, pocket money. And maybe it's for that pocket money, you have to do some chores. I think they should earn it. And it goes into their quote, quote, piggy bank. And it's like, okay, if you spend this amount of your piggy bank every month, but you save this amount, then that particular thing you want down the road, a bike, a toy, or this or that, you're saving up for it. Not only do they appreciate it a great deal more, they have a different sense of value of what that money is and how to buy it. And
Well,
there's a sense of achievement around it as well,
yeah,
right? Of having saved it.
my daughter worked with me for several years, and I thought what she did with her children was quite brilliant. She had the marble jar. Every time the kids did a chore or something,
Hmm.
each chore had a different value, and she threw one, two, three marbles into the jar. And when they wanted something, she pulled the marbles out of the jar for them. Well, if there weren't enough marbles, she got
Yeah.
her house cleaning just went up through the roof.
Yes.
And it was dependent upon how much the kids wanted what it was they're seeking, but they learned the value of the money.
Exactly. And we
And
don't we don't teach that to our children young enough. They
yeah,
see parents spending and this and that, and they think that, literally money grows on trees. And that Like my daughter and her husband always say, but this, why do you go to work, mummy? So that you can have this and you can have that. If without that, you wouldn't have this. This is what earning a living is. So we can provide. So, they're only 4 and 2. So they're a little bit young to kind of take things in yet. But I don't think they're ever too young to kind of start having a different perspective and a different value on money and a different value on expectations and getting things. Otherwise, I think it just all becomes expectation of give, and not earned or not valued.
Yeah. Well, if we go back a little bit of our Canadian history, in the early 1960s, Canadian government decided that deficit financing was good. In other words, we're going to go into the hole. Why? Because we've got future taxes. Our taxes are guaranteed. We're going to get future taxes coming in, revenue coming in from taxation. We'll be able to pay this debt off. And, where are we at? About $3 trillion or something. Wow. So anyway, but what happened was, usually there's a percentage of your income that is okay. There's the percentage for the mortgage, the percentage for
Mhm.
groceries and living expenses, and so on. What grows in that percentage is the taxes dependent on your income. We're trying to achieve more and more
Mhm.
and more. We earn more income, so the percentage of our income
Yes.
part grows. But our groceries, our rent, and all that kind of stuff, and our mortgage, that doesn't change. Those percentages remain the same. So
Well,
there
they go
becomes
up. The
no,
cost
no,
of
no, but
everything goes
we
up.
start to squeeze. We start to squeeze
Mhm.
essentials.
Yeah.
Like we make sacrifices. Okay,
Yes.
we're not going to go heavy on the quality of meats. I think we're going to start downsizing the type of the grade of and quality of meats and vegetables and everything
Mhm.
else. And then that's not the way to go. So
No.
what
You
happened
pay the
back in this
costs in a different way with health, and then the health costs you a great deal more. Because you're eating poorly. So sacrificing food should never be the right quality food should
so
never
in
be a
in
thing.
the 1960s, we started. It used to be a single. Most homes were single income. And then in the 1960s, when the deficit budgeting started coming in, pressuring people because taxation, both partners went to work. Well, then it's like that 10% increase of, oh, we got more money. So they adjust their lifestyle accordingly. And
Hmm.
eventually they were in a position where they couldn't live without that second income.
Right.
And so like I said, we fall into bad habits. We don't
Hmm.
deliberately go into bad habits, but creating good habits is the deliberate, conscious effort. Make
I,
sense?
I think I think also what we're seeing a great deal of now is a certain generation are looking at, I don't want the big mortgage. I don't want the big new car expense. I don't, want that burden. I will buy what I need to buy when I need to buy it, and only if I need to buy it. And if it gets kind of the pendulum swung the other way, where you still have got some people it's like, I need to have that latest phone. I need to have the latest car. I've got to keep up with appearances. And they're kind of bought into this societal expectation, which is all e-commerce. It's all money. Tax you more on what you earn. Credit cards make more on you. Everything. And I think we have to be more discerning. What do we really need? Is it within our means? And stop buying into this expectation. You're nothing without the latest iPhone, and to stop placing value on those external things.
So you've just hit on a point that I was going to mention later, but I'll address it now. And society's pressures.
Yes.
I've been to Mexico 37 times, and one thing I noticed over the last 30 years or so going to Mexico is the big box store. I'm not going to use any names here, but the big box store merchandisers that put out of business the small mom
I
and pop
know.
shops.
Hmm.
And I was in a name brand large supermarket, and there were 7 young adults in the lineup in front of me. Now, what I noticed, I'll just step back a bit. The year before, um, people were walking through the store, and there were staff there with clipboards. Would you like to get a credit card? Would you like to get a
Hmm.
store
Hmm.
credit card? And a lot of them had never even considered the credit card option was available to them.
Hmm.
And what would happen is they used to go to the little mom and pop shops and buy their goods. Well, now
Hmm.
they come into the big supermarket that's providing appliances, furniture, and every
Everything
gadget
they
known
need.
to human,
Hmm.
all the electronics. And the children say, "Wow, mom, look at this, look at that, look at
Hmm.
this." And of course, as parents, they want to look after their kids. And so we could never afford that. And someone comes up with the clipboard and says,
Yeah.
we'll give you a credit card. You can get that on your credit card. Well, all at once there's credit cards. So coming back to, I'm in the line, I'm at the checkout, and there's seven adults, probably in the mid 30s, and they were going to a party, and they had bought all the party goods, the chips or tacos down there, and so on. They had all the goods, the pops, and between the seven of them, they're trying to pay the bill. And after listening to them, the total debt was about $170 worth of goods they bought for their party. And they had all of them maxed out their credit cards.
Hmm.
They went to the ATM and pulled out the cash, and they were fleecing each other's pockets to see what extra change. They were about $5 short. And I thought, what a tragedy. Here's
Yes.
seven people in their early 30s that
Hmm.
have maxed out their credit cards and drained their bank accounts to buy some party goods. Like, how will they ever survive that? How will they come out of that,
Hmm.
So, yeah, that doesn't take much to fall into bad habits,
Yeah.
so with that credit card should come education.
Hmm.
And so the credit card company's not going to give you that education. Buy more, buy more, buy more. Hey, we'll
Yes.
raise your credit. Keep going,
Hmm.
you know? So where does that come from? Unfortunately, our schools do not offer
Hmm.
any financial structures, and it's later in life that they find out. When I talk to the graduating class at the high school, I gave them an example of one thing I know all teenagers are going to do when they get a job. What are they going to do when they get their paychecks,
They're going
Sarah?
to go buy something
What are they
that
going to
they thought
buy?
was
What are they going to
underage.
buy, Sarah?
Oh, probably a phone or a car. Yes, if it's in
Car. They're
that
going to
kind.
buy a
Yeah.
car.
Hmm.
So I gave them an example. There's a $10,000 car that they really like. That's the car lot for $10,000. I said, so there's three prices you can pay for that. And I fictitiously threw the numbers out there. $8,500, $10,000, or a little over $13,000. Which price do you want to pay? Well, 8,500. Okay. How do you do that? Well, you put a little bit aside each month until you've saved up and there's interest on the money. It's just not sitting there. Your money is working for you, and you've invested $8,500 that with return on your investment is now worth 10,000. So now you can buy this $10,000 car, but with only $8,500 out of your pocket.
Hmm.
Or, if you got rich parents, they write a check for 10,000 and it's gone. Or you finance it. And if you
Hmm.
finance it, you're going to be up over 13,000. So which is the smart way? The difference is $5,000,
Yes.
pretty much 50% of the value of the car when you look
Hmm.
at the one extreme to the other. And so we tend to abuse our credit
Hmm.
in in purchasing things. I can't remember, and I had the numbers too. Maybe I'm just not as sharp today for some reason, but um, we will go into debt for nonsensical things when the prudent use of credit in a tax efficient environment can be a good thing.
Hmm.
You often hear about how do the rich get rich? They leverage their position. They borrow against an asset to make more money with
Hmm.
that, you know, but there's a deliberate, planned um,
Calculation. Hmm.
calculation and
Hmm.
direction that they're going that will eventually fuel their desires. Um, so sometimes it's just simple. It starts simple. I'll say to people, and quite often some people say, when I get clients, and they'll say, we've never saved any money. We seem to go from payday to payday, and we just can't get on top of things. And so sometimes the mindset, it's got to be delivered.
Yes.
And I'll say, do you know the difference between a need and a want? Oh, sure, we know the difference between a need and want. I said, okay. I look at the gentleman. I say, how'd you like to take your wife? I said, if you were going to take your wife out and go out for a really nice evening and wine and dine and everything and spend $150. Is that a need or a want? Oh, definitely a want. I suppose if you're doing it every week, I'd say it's a want. But every 3 or 4 months, maybe your relationship needs
Yes.
you to do that. And so it's not cut and dry.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are, cognizant and present of mind at the time you're spending your money, do I really need this or do I want this? And so I have an expression that is saying that I've used for years now. When people make a financial decision, and I guess this applies to other things in life too, but when people make a financial decision from a position of emotion,
Yeah.
rarely do they realize the intended outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get back to buying the car. Look at the color. Oh, this color is
Yes.
just so beautiful.
Shiny
It's shiny.
freedom.
And it has all those extra bells and whistles I never
Yes.
even thought about. Wow. Let alone do I know how to use them, but I need it. I need it. Well,
Yes.
that crazy frenzy that gets us into trouble. Um, I remember, you'll probably remember. Do you remember when we used to crank the windows up and down?
Oh, yes. I have a friend who's still got one of those.
And power
No
and power
automatic lock.
power windows was an option, and quite
Yes.
often it was like a $500 option.
Yes.
But I had to,
Mm.
because God help me that my muscles should fail to turn that little wheel. And so we make emotional decisions
Hmm.
that sometimes, well, most times, do not give us the most favorable outcome. So
Yeah.
keep
And
emotions out of the equation. Uh, I remember when went through my buying homes, selling homes, buying homes. A house was a house. My wife said, "No, it's my home." Yeah, well,
mhm.
okay.
Exactly, exactly. And don't ever contradict her on that.
No, no, I got it. I got it. But for me, it had a dollar value, done on, move on to the next one. I mean, it wasn't that it didn't become attached to my homes, but if the right opportunity came, it was gone. I was on to the next one.
Well, that was my mother actually. She would buy homes. And my father, after the war, said, no, no, houses are going to go back to pre-war prices. And she goes, no, I mean, he was the businessman, but when it came to this, he just didn't get it. So she would buy houses that needed fixing up. And she always just knew the right handyman. And she would get it fixed up. We'd live there a couple of years and then on the market would go, make a profit and on to the next.
That's right.
And so that my mum was very, very savvy on that. My father ran an import and export timber business, international, very, very good. But when it came to this type of thing, no, but she always made everything homely, that anybody could walk in and feel at home. And
She
that
gave
was
the
her
curb
gift.
appeal. Okay?
Oh,
She gave
not
it the
just
curb.
curb appeal. No, no, no. You're just thinking real estate and sales. She's talking about anybody could come into that house and say, this feels like home. I could fall asleep on the couch.
Yeah.
I feel so at home.
Well, I get it. Yeah. So it's
And
like
there
we
is a
used to say,
difference.
you don't sell the bacon, you sell the sizzle, right?
Yeah, it's people when they go home, no matter where they are, want to feel so at home that they don't have to be on guard for anything. They can just be themselves and really feel that that home has got their support.
Mm.
Right. And, sometimes the difference is that some people look at it as bricks and mortars and it's worth this and I can sell this and go on to the next. And sometimes people look at it, the investment in this home is the well-beingness. And you can't buy well-beingness, you have to create it.
Yeah, that's right. I agree. So when we look at a couple of things, when I talk about financial planning is different than getting financial advice.
Hmm.
Um, there's an end game in mind, not the immediate. So financial advice is about remedying the immediate situation and hopefully hoping for a positive outcome. But financial planning is long term. And basically, planning in the financial world falls into three categories. Financial planning is managing our assets today, our cash flow and the everyday living. That's it. And retirement planning feeds off of that. It's putting a little bit of
Yeah.
the money aside so that eventually we need a paycheck from until the day we die.
Yes, unfortunately,
Yeah, we do.
yes.
And so while we're working, we know if you're working for somebody or whether you're working for yourself, you know where that paycheck is coming from. But when we retire, we still need a paycheck. And where will that paycheck come from? If you manage your money well, you've set up a retirement nest egg or some kind of a revenue stream from somewhere else, but that's you still need that paycheck. And estate planning is the next level. Retirement planning is managing. We've worked our lifetime to put up to create an estate that's going to feed us for, that is going to provide
From
that
beginning to end.
beginning to end. And then the estate planning feeds off of that. When our last day comes, what's left in our estate, how do we manage that? And I always say we can manage our estate from the grave if you do
Hmm.
it right. And we put in things in place. No matter what any money we earn or any income we receive or any money we spend has a tax consequence.
Hmm.
There's tax on money receiving and money spending. And so not all of it has to be negative. I'll give you an example. You put money into an RSP, the government gives you back some of the taxes that you paid on that. So that's a smart way to use your money because it has a positive tax outcome. Tax-free savings account, the money's allowed to grow in a tax-free environment. That's a positive tax experience.
Hmm.
Um, Putting money into your child's registered education savings plan, the government contributes into that plan for you. That's a positive tax experience. So they don't all have to be negative.
Right.
And there's a lot of opportunities, but you need to know the rules. And you need to talk to a financial planner that gets the big picture, not
Hmm.
just the immediate, oh, we'll just put money aside and hopefully one day you'll get enough that you can retire. No, no, that's not planning. That's
Yeah.
just living on
Well,
wishes.
let's look at that right now because I'm a senior. I'm going to be carrying on working. I don't know. I've signed a contract to 90. I hope I can still do it. But an awful lot of seniors are being dinged right now because they've just got the pension, right? They worked their job, they've got a small pension. The pension doesn't go up, but of course, everything's gone up at least by 30%. And they're just finding where it's a time where they should be comfortable and allowing themselves little pleasures. They're not even able to make ends meet. So there is no kind of saving anything, or maybe they got caught up in raising the family, everything going out to the family, not paying themselves first, paying themselves last, never enough to pay themselves at all. And there's so many people I know in this situation that how do they manage? Because they don't want to feel prisoners of that quote pension check. They still want to be able to go and do a few things. It's not, traveling, forget it, but at least go and do a few things. But with everything going up exponentially, especially right now, I went to buy some coffee I liked the other day. It's gone up $8 because of tariffs, right? So,
I
everywhere
know.
you go, and and a lot of them are really, really hurting. So, how do they plan? What can they do in this situation?
Okay. So interesting. You talk about the groceries going up. I was buying groceries the other day, and a lady beside me says, "Unbelievable!" And I turned and looked, and what she had done was taken a stalk of celery and weighed it because
Yeah.
it says so much by the pound. She says, "This stalk is $7." I can't believe I'm paying seven. No, rips it in half. She says, "I don't need this much." And she walks out.
Good for her.
Good for you, lady.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only take what you
So,
need.
so I said I've been to Mexico many times. I've been on cruises and so on, and I remember one time I think we were leaving Cozumel or something. We're sailing away, and we're still close enough to shore that we could see the dock. And there were some people that somewhat tardy didn't make the sailing, and they were supposed to be
Oh,
there. And
oh,
now they're stuck on the dock.
oh no.
They obviously didn't plan well.
Right, right. Or they got caught up in, things breaking
But
down, planes
whatever.
canceling,
I'm
ferries
sure they had an
canceling.
excuse, but it was
Yeah.
always, they're going to blame the ship, the other 4,000 people on the ship. We should have all been considerate and just said, let's delay our vacation while we wait for these people. No, that wasn't going to happen. So when we look at people that reach retirement, all the tools were there I don't care what income. I always come back to that that client with $1,400.
Hmm.
By the way, at the end of the 5 months, she phoned me. She says, Michael, she says, that last $20 is just too difficult for me. But she was able to put $120 a month aside without compromising her lifestyle.
Hmm.
If a girl $1,400, a single person on $1,400 a month can put $120 aside, we can do the same. They're making 5,000 a month, 10,000 a month, whatever the amount is. We just need to change our habits. You know,
5,000 a month and 10,000 a month. If you're not living well on that, then clearly you need to look at your spending. But
I've got,
as a pensioner, they're under 2,000 a month.
I know. And so I've got people that come in here that are earning over $200,000 a month. They got a nice big shiny truck outside. They've got all the toys, but they have no money. They have nothing put
Yeah.
aside for their, and they got a lot of debt. A
Mm.
lot of debt.
Why? Not when you're earning that much.
Well,
Yeah.
because they can afford to make the payments.
Mm.
I lived up north where it was the second highest income per capita in British Columbia and the highest debt service per capita. Back in the 1990s, the average person, it was a mill town, and people were working, making big money, very good money. Um, the money they were making would be akin to someone with an undergraduate degree, like someone that had working for the Ministry of the Environment or Fisheries or Forestries. You know, they had a bachelor's degrees in whatever their particular interests, and they were making into the mid $50,000 back then. Well, you could work at the mill and make that and more, and the average grade, medium grade level, grade nine, grade
Hmm.
nine in that town. So here are people that the educated, those that were had their bachelor's degrees, went through a rites of passage to earn that. I think of my granddaughter right now. She's trying to pay off her student loans, and she's been back in the workforce since she graduated, probably about 4 or 5 years, still paying off the student loans.
Yeah.
She learned to budget and control, and it was deliberate. Again, coming back to it was deliberate how to manage that money. These people just showed up one day on the bus and said, "I'm here. Give me the money." And they go out and credit. Everybody was getting credit, and then I can afford this, I can afford that. So it's people, like I say, I've got people with earning over $200,000 a year. They've got no money saved up.
Yeah.
They're living the dream now, but I'll tell you, the crash comes. If they lose their job, they've got a lot of debt,
Yes.
and they're out of control.
Not 200,000 a year, you shouldn't even have a credit card because you're earning enough to be able to pay as you go. Um, you don't even need it unless it's a debit credit card. So, I know they're convenient because you can buy
Well,
things, but you
no,
can do the same with a debit card.
like I'm going to step in here. Using your credit card, provided you're paying it off every month. Let's say
Yeah.
someone, let's say um, someone has a line of credit or a mortgage. Let's say you got $100,000 and you're using your credit card. You're spending $5,000 a month all on your credit card. The day before any interest is going to be charged, pay it off. But in the
Yeah.
meantime, your money is sitting, reducing your debt, and you're not paying interest on the debt. For instance, if you're paying 5% interest, that's your debt service, 5%. You have to make the equivalent of 8 or 9% to pay that five because
Wow.
the dollars you're paying is with an after-tax dollar. And
Mm,
sometimes when people come in and say, how can I save money? I said, I'll often say the first thing you do is you attack your debt because I've got nothing I can guarantee you that'll give you more return on your investments than paying that debt down
hmm.
because that interest is a killer. Credit cards at 20%.
I
This is
know.
the, so if we put it in real dollars, I'm going to pay $20 of interest this month. I have to earn $35 to pay that 20.
Hmm.
Put it in real terms. Every dollar we spend or save has a tax consequence,
Yes.
positive or negative. And so knowing just part of the rules, you just when I learned to swim, it wasn't I was going to jump in the deep end and just
Right.
figure it out.
You got to learn how to flap those arms and legs
No,
first.
that's right. And had the little balloon things on my arms and rope around my neck, and
Yeah,
But
exactly.
so so with seniors retiring, if they didn't have good habits up to retirement, the chances of them having good habits after they're retired are slim to none. Um, but it doesn't mean that they can't develop. It's got to be deliberate, and you got to be focused on it. People don't plan to fail; they fail to plan. And the
Mm-hmm.
same in retirement. So someone says, "Man, I come to retirement and I've got no money saved up, and what do I do? What do I do?" Well, we start looking at the lifestyle. Um, I remember one couple. This is 15 years ago. Um, they were on Canada Pension Plan, old age security. They had no other pensions. They had no savings. They had a home that was to die for. Back then, that 15 years ago, what would yeah, yeah, about 2010. Yeah, the home was worth $1 million back then.
Mm.
It was such a large home. I forget how big it was. It had They closed off the basement because they couldn't afford to heat the top and bottom.
Right. Downsize, man.
It seems so logical. But
Yes.
there was the oh, we built this house when we first, we just can't get rid of it. Emotional attachment.
Hmm.
When we make financial decisions from a position of emotion, the intended outcome quite often
Yeah, I mean, you can always
is
rent
met.
out the basement, have it making you an income if you don't want to move, right? But yes, it comes to a point in our life. It's like, making a home while you're raising a family. If you're good at making a home, it doesn't matter where you are, you will make it homely. But we do have to look at, what do I need now? And I don't
Well,
need the big house. I don't need that. It is what do I want to do? I'd prefer to actually take a trip every now and again. Well, I can't do that if I own the big house. And so I think it's a lot of it is that we have to sit down and ask ourselves, I was used to X, Y, and Z lifestyle. I don't have the money for that lifestyle anymore. How do I adjust it where I still have a lifestyle I enjoy, but I'm basically downsizing my expectations. I'm not worrying about what other people will think or the stigma of like you're living in an apartment now instead of a big house.
but those are practical solutions, but emotions get in the way.
Mm-hmm.
And so with this couple, I couldn't help them because they were not willing to let go of their memories.
Yeah.
It's like in an estate. Grandpa and Grandma had a cabin at the lake. They paid $5,000 back in 1900 and click, click, click. Um, and then Mom and Dad spent all their summers at the cabin. And we as kids grew up and water skiing on the
Mm-hmm.
lake and everything. Now it's worth $1 million, and the government's going to be looking at about $250,000 in taxes when Mom and Dad die.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way we're going to get that 250,000 is to sell the cottage. And there's
Or at least Airbnb it or something, make money out of it, turn it
so
into an
no,
enterprise.
but it's the emotional
Yeah.
attachments. And if there is a strong emotional attachment, then you got to address it before you know, it's getting your horse into the trough and you're just waiting for the gate to open, and down the track they go. But you got to get them ready first. And so
Yeah.
into retirement, there are solutions. And even though but it means adjusting the lifestyle. I have a client, well, no, both of them have passed away now. They were in their 80s. And this goes back to maybe 2004. Um, I helped them move in. They lived in the same house for 50, 60 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they downsized into a double wide trailer home.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I helped them, and it was an older one. So I went in, and they were friends. So I helped paint the place and fixed it all up. And their generation, he was in his 80s already back then. Back in the Depression, we have cohort groups. The Depression, whether you were a child, a teenager, middle aged, or a senior, they all experienced the same thing,
Yes.
the depression. And the Holy of Holies, the banks, lost the money and took the houses.
Hmm.
So paying the house off was very important. And so those seniors quite often would hold some cash, the jar behind the fridge sort of thing.
Hmm.
Well, one day I'm sitting down with a couple and I said to this wife, I said, where does he, I'll call them Joe and Sally, okay, just fictitious names. Where does Joe keep this cash? And she gets a grin on her face and says, he puts it in an envelope between the mattresses. I said, how much does he have there? She said, about $5,000.
Hmm.
Now, back up a bit, they've got 7 children. The most underachiever child is the principal of a high school. They literally had a child that was a rocket scientist at NASA. They had a couple physicians in their family. There was an accountant. They were all professional people. So I said to him, I said, Joe, what are you going to do with this $5,000? Well, I guess it's for the kids, we're just holding it for the kids. I figured some of your kids make that in a week, what?
Yeah.
So I said, hmm. He said, well, I guess I should put it into the bank and make some money on it. I said, well, I looked at her again and I said, what have you always wanted to do? She says, and they made sacrifices, having seven
Oh, yeah.
children.
Hmm.
And they were just check to check as well. They had no savings except for that $5,000 sitting in the envelope. She said, I always wanted to go on a cruise. I said, well, that's what you're going to spend your money on. I said, that's the best investment for you.
Yes.
Anyway, he wasn't for that. She was. I saw her a couple of weeks later. She says, Michael, we're going on an Alaska cruise. When they got back, I saw them again. And she said, Michael, that was the most incredible memory for me in all the years that we've been together. They're married like 65 years or something. They're up there, 60 years anyway. She says, that's the my favorite. She said, I can't tell you how much it meant to me. And I looked at him and I said, how was it for you? He says, the money is gone. Money is gone. And so it was his frame
For
of
her, it was
mind.
an investment in
But 4 months
joy.
later, yeah, but 4 months later, he passed away.
Ah,
And she says to me, she says, Michael, I am so grateful
yes.
that you talked us into taking that cruise and investing in ourselves.
Yes.
She says,
Don't keep putting things off for tomorrow. Tomorrow's never promised,
she
right?
says, I've got a memory that I will cherish till my
Yes.
my dying day. And so, like as a financial planner, I sometimes look at the human side and say,
Hmm.
yeah, let's get greedy and make your money grow possibly, but we've got most things taken care of. You got to invest in yourself. First your health, then your wealth. Those,
Yeah.
very
Inner
important.
wealth, outer wealth. It's, if you can be rich on the outside, and I've done this long enough to know rich people aren't always happy. We want that enrichment of from the inside out. And we obviously want your money to kind of match that. But people who chase money think that's going to make them happy and fulfill them are generally left very, very empty and always wondering why they're not fulfilled. And then you've got people that have dedicated their life to something, they've lived paycheck to paycheck, and then one simple thing like this has become all the enrichment that they need. I think also a whole approach towards money, it isn't about just skimping by or struggling. It's or putting away for the rainy day. It is important that you do allocate fun time. Otherwise, what are we living for? If we can't go out for dinner, if we can't go to a movie, can't go say yes to friends to that concert or whatever the case, what are we living for? All we're doing is surviving. So I think when you are working out and planning your money, what's the fun time and how much you're going to allocate for that?
And a good point there. I've had people in the past that did incredible jobs of investing, making their portfolio grow, made major sacrifices. Basically, their lives were miserable. Then
Mm-hmm.
they reach retirement and their lives are still miserable because now they got so much wealth put aside. The tax thing hits them. And so we got to live. You're right. We got to live.
Yes.
But
Yes.
we can't be foolish about it. And knowing the difference between a want and a need again,
Yeah.
to nourish like I live in a community here that has a high population of seniors and retired and elderly people. And so there's two components. There's your health and your wealth.
Hmm.
Some have both, some have one or the other, and some have neither.
Hmm.
And yet, when I look at them, their lifestyles are pretty much the same. Those that have wealth and health, they're the snowbirds in the winter. They go down to the southern warmer climates and they spend weekends on maybe the whole week on the golf course.
Hmm.
Those with good health but no wealth, once in a while they'll go on a vacation, a cruise, or they will go maybe a couple times a year. They'll get out there golfing. They do a lot of walking. They're staying healthy and fit. But one thing both do is they visit with their grandchildren.
Hmm.
There's like communication and connection. And as soon as they start talking about their grandchildren, they all
Mm.
light up. They come across like paid commercials, every one of them.
Yes. I'm
I'm just as
guilty of that.
I'm guilty as that too. Then there's those that don't have health, but one has wealth and one has, and my example is a little joking, but the difference in those two is that one sits in a wheelchair and pushes it along, and the other one has a little motor stick that he
Yeah.
drives it along. But basically, they see their grandchildren, they're immobile, and their lifestyles are pretty much the same. One's got a little prettier house than the other, apartment than the other, but really, their lives are the same.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I
so,
think it's what's important to you. That's what you got to look at.
absolutely.
Yeah. I mean,
So, so when we look at again, it has to be deliberate.
hmm.
Here, no matter where you are in life, we can always introduce and start deliberately practicing good habits.
Hmm.
If we've had a lifetime of bad habits, and God knows I've had my share of bad habits and doing things wrong, and I talk about reconnaissance. I, I don't think people fail so much as they don't plan to fail, of course, but people have what was I going to say? Um, I just skipped me there. Sorry about that.
That's okay. She'll come back to you in a moment.
Yeah, yeah, it will probably. But to have to have these bad habits, you need to make a deliberate and conscious decision to overcome them and put a plan together to do it. And like to write it down. I'm telling people all the time, write this down. Go home
Mhm.
and write this down. Put it on a fridge. Do something, like whatever you want, but write it down.
Well, an awful lot of people don't actually realize they have a bad habit until it's written down. I'm a two-column person. The things, especially if it's emotions, all the things that are negative and the things that are positive, what are you feeding? Well, it could be the same thing, with your habits, which is a healthy habit, put it down, which is, oh gosh, I didn't realize that was an unhealthy habit, put it in that column. Because when you're aware, you care. When you care, you do something about it. But an awful lot of time, people go through life unaware that this is a bad habit, or I could do something different, or just simply doing this, changing my perspective, putting a little aside. Uh, I don't need that anymore. Why am I still paying for it? I can go and do something else that brings me joy. But a lot of it comes down to is the lack of awareness. And when we pay attention and we obviously listen to shows like this and learn tidbits, then you actually can be proactive and put it to use and start taking control of your life. And those habits that you're aware of, and they keep coming and knocking on the door, you tell them where to go.
So, okay, so speaking to that, there was a young lady that I was working with. She was in her um, probably late 20s, working in an office with a lot of other women, all around the same age. And they were making about, I think the gross income was about $30,000 a year. So she's probably taking home a little over $2,000 a month. And I introduced her to my 10% savings plan. And every year she would travel and she would take these exotic trips everywhere. And the girls in the office say, "Oh man, how do you afford to do that?" Well, the girls at the office, they go out for lunch. She'd bring her own lunch.
Hmm.
Um, they would, she'd go up and join them for coffees. Well, they get the macchiato,
Yeah,
double
exactly.
dipping, this and that. And I don't understand. I have coffee. That's it. I'm just a
Black coffee
coffee, a
straight.
little bit of cream. That's it. And so, but she, instead of taking a medium size or a large, she'd take a small.
Hmm.
And so nickels and dimes here and there,
Yes,
it all came together. And she would have these envious trips to the rest of her workmates, and they just they would live vicariously through her trips because when she came back, she'd have the most incredible experiences and stories to share that they never had.
right.
And because,
She prioritized it. She
well, she not
prioritized.
only
Yeah.
prioritized it, but she developed a smart habit.
Yes.
And so it's deliberate. And
Hmm.
I can't say it enough. It has to be deliberate. Oh, someday I'm going to do this. No, 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 not someday. Today, start the first step. Make it the deliberate. I
Yeah.
like that expression. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. You take it one bite at a time and you'll get there.
And
So,
I think again it comes down to perspective. Is that we can all be overwhelmed and money never seems enough. Then there's the car payments or the car broke down or this that. Something is always happening. And I used to be a third rent, and expenses, a third pleasure and a third savings, of my salary. When I obviously earned enough that I could do that, because you always are going to have an unexpected payment. So if you're saving up for a trip, you don't want suddenly a car payment to come up that you've got to fix and you can't go on your trip anymore. Maybe put, in the old proverbial cookie jar, a payment unexpected, the unexpected bills that come up, because they will. Something will have to be fixed along the line and you don't have the money for it. So maybe put it aside.
so let me just share with you. I have four children, and when we were growing, I was a single income home, four children, and we wanted to go to Disneyland. And that was going to be back then it was going to be about, I think the airfare was like $6,000 back then.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh, it was
Yeah.
less for us.
So
What flight did you take?
that was a tough nut to crack. So I looked at it and I thought, well, I kept getting inundated with these requests to get a credit card.
Hmm.
And I got one that got me air points, air miles.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so we go to a grocery shop and the wife has spent $300-400, and right across the hall from the supermarket was the ATM machine. I put the $300-400 on the credit card. She go over to the ATM, transfer the cash, make a payment.
Right.
Did that for a year. Everything went on the credit card, but we paid it off right away. So we never had
Hmm.
this debt
Yes.
looming over us. We saved $6,000 of because
Yes.
all of us. So using it properly. We had a boarder one time, nice lady, a professional, and she was talking about her credit cards. She never flew. Like she, I don't know why but she never flew. I said, well, why you got a credit card with air miles? She said, I don't know. That's the one they gave me. I said, well, what do you do? She said, well, I buy a new Camaro every 3 years. So she got a General Motors credit card.
Hmm.
Everything she
Hmm.
put, credit card, credit card. Well, when she went to buy her new Camaro, she applied for her points, and she got, I think it was about $7,000 or $8,000
Yes.
rebate from her credit card.
Yeah.
So the prudent use, again,
Hmm.
repeat myself,
Hmm.
I repeat myself lots. The prudent use of credit in a tax efficient environment is a good thing.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
um, if you got credit cards, good for you. I'll give you an example. I have a MasterCard from Canadian Tire. I needed a battery that for my car, uh, $350 or something. I didn't have to pay for it because I collected all these points,
Yes.
wiped it out. So using it properly, know what you know, they all offer you these bonuses and stuff. Do you really need the bonus? I remember the days when you open up a bank account, they give you a frying pan. Well, I don't need another frying pan. Or, there's all these, come
Well,
on.
Walmart is, and some others do this, is that as you use their card to pay for your groceries, and then it will come up. You can take $5 off today, $10 off, or $20, or let it accumulate, and it'll actually, you can say, then it will come off your bill right there and then.
Yeah,
So, and again, the emphasis is make sure you pay that card off every single month so that it's not accumulating,
you
but
bet.
use it so that it's working for you. You
So
don't end up working for it.
if you're paying the interest every month, you're not paying it off.
No.
You have to step back and say, is the reward of the points or whatever it is I'm doing
Yeah.
worth the cost?
Yeah.
And the answer is usually no, because the that interest is a killer. Like I said, if you're paying $20 interest, you have to earn $35, maybe
Hmm.
$40, depending on your income level, to make that $20 payment. Well, and then
That
you
doesn't make
bought
sense.
20%. So that means you bought a $100 item. I'm using a full year. So let's say you bought a $100 item and you didn't make any payments for a year. There's $20 interest that's accrued on that $100 item. You then decide to pay it off, but it's cost you $35 to pay that 20. So you paid $135 for a hundred
Full.
dollar item.
Yes. So it
You know,
wasn't such a deal after all.
it wasn't such a deal.
Yeah.
And like people, I love to watch people, especially in stores. And let's say we're in a shoe department. Now, most women will relate to this. Look at the women's section of shoes. Men's is black and brown, you know, maybe
They've
three.
got fancier now. Believe me, there's a lot of young men that like their fancy shoes.
Well, nowadays they do too. Why do they put so much color on your sneakers, you know?
Hmm.
Again, so but there's a shoe for $100 and there's a shoe for 150. And instinctively it seems like people, oh, I'd love to buy that $150 shoe. And but I was saying to a friend one time, um, he was looking to buy a vehicle. And I said, what are you going to use the vehicle for? He said, why is that important? I said, it should be important. If you're going to be hauling goods, you don't want to buy a little Volkswagen. You
Hmm.
need to buy a truck,
Hmm.
right? And the same thing with money. You need to know, again, is it a need or a want? And what's its purpose? What's its purpose? And so, but it has to be a part of the bigger picture. What's the end game for you? If your end game is to retire, and there too in retirement, our society has drawn a line in the sense that 65 years old, you
Yeah.
retire. What the heck's with that? I tell people that write it down again, write it down. What do you see your retirement lifestyle looking like?
Yes.
Once you've done that, we're going to travel 2, 3 times a year. We're going to downsize the home. We're going to be spending more time traveling locally, whatever it might be. Spend time in the garden, recreations, walking, golfing, hiking, whatever it might be. Write that down, then put a dollar value to it. What's it going to cost me to maintain that lifestyle?
Hmm.
And monitor your savings and your monies as you go through. And when you realize that you're at a position where you can afford that lifestyle comfortably, with maybe a little bit of an extra cushion there, it's time to retire. I have a
So,
client that was 58 years old, and he figured he was actually waiting till he was going to be 65. They owned oceanfront property. They had three building houses on this property. It belonged to one of their parents at one time. It was 5 acres. Good revenue coming in. I think the uh, um, from investments and other things, I think they're pulling in about $7,000 a month. They had zero debt, no mortgages, and he's waiting to work so he could get a bump up on his pension. And I said, you're going to go work for another 7 years
mhm.
when you could retire today. I said, if you like your job, you want to work like I look at myself as being retired, but I'm working because I
Mhm.
like what I do.
Yes.
I got to retire. I had a buyer for my business about 10 years ago. But, he goes, why did you? I didn't want to retire,
Mhm.
you know? And my clients said to me, Michael, after managing our monies for 20 years, you want to abandon us now? I thought, oh, okay. I don't need some guilt, but if it's
Yes.
there. So,
Actually, there's something I want to point out that came to my attention. There's a gentleman I know that goes and works with seniors on their computer stuff. Their computer's not working and this, that. And they had a couple that they had 1.2 million when they moved into this retirement complex. And they thought they're set for life, right? They
mm,
get their meals, they're this and that. They outlived their life expectancy. And when he went to see them, they weren't in their usual area. They were told they're in the basement and they were on cots because they can no longer pay what they used to pay. So 1.2 million did not buy them the retirement they thought because they outlived their expectation.
well, something's amiss there because I've got clients that I've held their hand up to retirement and with $350,000 in investments, and they will never, as a matter of fact, I've got clients that start off about that and they're sitting on about a half a million and they've been retired for
Yeah,
11,
but these
12
people
years.
went into a retirement home.
Yeah.
And so the expenses of the home went up and it didn't match their 1.2 million,
Oh.
which they thought they were covered for life,
Well,
right?
they may have, it might be one of those homes where they work on a percentage of your assets. And even then, again, if you know the rules, there's ways of positioning your assets so that not all assets look the same. I had a client that she's passed away since. She had terminal illness and she was blowing, I was managing about $400,000 for her money, and she was blowing through close to $8,000 a month. It wasn't going to take her long. So
Yeah.
I she she was up Island. I told her to move down to Victoria, closer to. She was back and forth 2 or 3 times a week for the medical attention she needed. And I said, it's costing you too much. Reduce that, find a place to live down there. And she was renting up Island, so she rented down there. So I went down one day and I said, I'm coming down. I have other business. And I said, I'm going to take you and we're going to make some changes for you. So the way I had positioned her investments with the insurance companies, they treat the incomes differently. And insurance income is annuity income, which is another word for pension. Pensions have a bunch of money in the background and they're feeding off the front. But if you have an asset sitting here, if you've got a big investment, that's an asset that they can grab hold of the big chunk, right? So I took her to BC Housing or one of the
Mhm.
ministries anyway. And I put her on a list. It was a 2-year list, and we got her taken down. She had a trekking, like she was breathing through a tube in her throat. And poor, it was a sad case. Anyway, I talked to the supervisor, and in about 4 months' time, she gave me a phone call. She says, Michael, she says, I'm in my new residence. Very nice. She says, I've got a physio, I've got some kind of a coach, I've got this, I've got that, I've got a caseworker. And she says, and they're charging me. Now she had to buy her own groceries and so on,
Mhm.
but she says they're charging me $170 a
Wow.
month based
Mhm.
on how I had structured her monies
Mhm.
so that she could afford that and get that. So didn't change what assets she had, just changed the face of that so that
Yes.
it gave her the benefit. Uh, a lot of people, I say, if you know the tax rules, everything has a positive and negative. One thing that's often overlooked in people, and there's an ego involved in this, is the disability tax credit. I had a gentleman who was 71 years old, and it's retroactive up to 10 years. And he had some revenue properties, and he was making some good money. Anyway, he I was in his home, and we were talking, and alarm goes off, and he had to go take a needle for his insulin, and he was a diabetic. So I talked more about it and I helped them apply for the disability tax credit. And you got a check back for $27,300.
Wow.
Pretty
Hmm.
nice. Wow, I was right. And so I've probably directed close to 200 people, I would say, towards the disability tax credit. The smallest check I think I've seen is maybe 4,000, but they range between 4 and 12,000, 15,000. And that's extra money
Yes,
that they didn't even know that they had.
exactly. Exactly.
So again, it isn't what we make, it's what we keep that's
But
important.
it's also what's available that we don't always know is available.
That's right.
Right.
If you don't know the rules
Mm,
and you're in the game, I don't like no one's lives are impacted more on their financial decisions than they are.
yeah.
And I say that repeatedly to my clients when they're in my office here. And rarely have I had somebody in my office that's as badly off as they think they are
Hmm.
financially. They're always better. We tend to think too negatively about our finances, but people are better off, and sometimes they have to be shown just how good, how well off they are. That girl with $1,400 a month, now she's living with $120 less and putting money aside.
Hmm.
Another lady was declaring bankruptcy, and I helped restructure her finances. And now she's putting $500 a month aside into an emergency fund. Um, she was earning, she was clearing 2,000 a month with a $2,900 a month debt service.
Hmm.
She was bankrupt.
Yeah.
So I helped restructure it all for her, went to the creditors with her, and we secured a loan for her, and she had money to burn. So it's got to be deliberate. And at the
Well,
same time,
it's you've got to, like with anything in your life, is that if you don't know, you need to find out. That's the
that's
reason why
right.
we're doing this show, is that
If you
what you've
don't know,
shared
you need to
today.
get, yeah,
Yeah,
you need to know for sure. If I've got if I've strained the muscles in my back, I'm not going to go talk to my car mechanic about how do I get
exactly.
rid of it. You need
Yeah,
to know where to go. And this, people, I remember, um, I was in a mill town, and the guys that get advice all standing around the cooler. And the guy that talked the loudest was the one that was the smartest, they'd say. But where do you get your counsel and advice?
hmm.
Well, Joel knew a friend, and his friend has a brother-in-law who, well, he's in jail now, but he really had a good scam going.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is like even I do medical shows as well, and a lot of it is like what to ask your doctor, because we go in, well, it hurts, well, where does it hurt, and then everything becomes surface and not deep, and it's like, but I'm not the doctor, or I'm not the mechanic. When I go to the car, I got a ding, I don't know where the ding is coming from, you're the mechanic. But it's how do we actually ask the questions, how do we relay what the problem is? And so you need to go to somebody financial that understands your situation, not one size fits all, fill in this template, do this, but understands what you're up against and works with you to help you have that plan.
That's
Manage
it
your
exactly.
money so that it's not managing you, that you can actually go and do the things. And it's okay for you to say to people, you know what? No, I'm saving up for something right now. Sorry, I can't join you. Right. And it's okay to do that. It's okay for you to say, yes, I can. No, I can't. I choose not to. But it's having that plan of knowing how to do it. Now, because you don't take clients anything anymore, but
I
if,
do. I
oh,
do
you do?
take clients. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, very
great.
much. So I'll tell you, people come up to me and like I've taken down my website and all my media. Everything comes to me by referral.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I get lots of referrals. I get lots of referrals. But if I'm in a conversation, I'm in a restaurant or something, I meet somebody, talk, what do you do? I tell them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and if the conversation, I'm going to solicit their business.
Yeah.
They'll say, what can you do for me? I say, I don't have a clue. I don't have a clue. And that's the legit, there's so much ego in my business that it's
Oh, God,
frightening.
yes.
But so
Yes.
someone says, what can you do for me? I don't know. I don't know. Until we sit down, I gather the whole story.
Mm-hmm.
My first meeting with a new client is an hour and a half long,
Just
gathering
peeling
information,
peeling back the onions and getting to
just
the root
getting
cause of the thing.
everything
Yeah.
out. And I make no recommendations at that time because I've gathered the information I'm going to sort through it and I'm going to say, okay, this is where I find deficiency. This is where it's weak. This is your objectives and goals. And I have two questions I ask my people, my clients or prospects when they come in to see me, before they come to see me. I ask them to find the answers to these two questions. It's very simple. At this time in your life, what is your greatest financial fear or concern?
Hmm.
That's the first question. And the second question is identify. I want you to identify, and it's really not a question, but okay, what are your three primary financial goals? We want to buy a new fridge. We want to go on a vacation. I want to put money aside for retirement. I want to buy a second house. But start, they can be, as long as there's a dollar value. We want new curtains in the house. Okay.
Hmm.
Those are all financial related goals. You can have as many as you want. But so once I get that with the financials and the rest of their story, then I can put a plan together. But that first hour and a half, I don't make any recommendations. I don't even give them observations
And
because
that's the point, because so many others will immediately, well, I've got this plan, and if you just follow this, and it's
yeah,
like, but it may not
there's
fit where
there
I'm
are
at.
no there are
Yeah.
no cookie cutter solutions.
No,
No.
no,
And no one has, again, I repeat myself, no one has more to gain or lose on your financial decisions than you do. And so
exactly.
for me, I take that really to heart and I'm cognizant of that. And my fiduciary responsibility isn't to make decisions for you, but to arm you with as much information as you can handle to make the best solution that suits you best. Because in the end, you make that decision, you will
Right.
benefit or lose on that. So,
You're still using your strategies and plans that you know that work, that you've used forever, but you are tailoring them, you're customizing them for the people on how to use them in their situation.
oh,
Same
definitely.
same
I said
tools,
before,
but how
it's
do you use the
reconnaissance.
tool? Yeah.
It's reconnaissance. I'm
Hmm.
learning, I used to be, when I was up north, before I became a financial planner in this business, I was as in a volunteer position. Since I was 19 years old, I've always been self-employed or I've managed businesses and I've managed them successfully. But I was also the subcommittee chair for Community Futures, and I assisted over 200 people with their business plans. Not all of them came to fruition, but when they went through the proper structure and plan, they realized that it wasn't a viable business to
Right.
get into. And so, but they come with this passion. Oh, we're going to do this. I'm going to set the world on fire. I
Hmm.
got this great invention. We're going to do this. And when they do the homework, when they do the plan, they realize, not for me. I didn't realize how much work it is. Or I need a lot more capital, or it's going to take a lot longer to happen than I expected, or whatever.
Or the
Whatever reason.
return isn't as big as
But
I thought it would be. Yeah.
but yeah, exactly. So, but I've done my job in
Hmm.
counseling them for them to make that kind of a decision.
Exactly. And kind of, whether people come to you because they got a business idea or it's personal management, principles are the same. It's just adjusting it according to what's in front of you right now.
Yeah. 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 And so, yeah, like I said at the start of this show here today, whether you're say working with $1,000 or $1 million, the
Mm-hmm.
rules are the same.
Yeah.
The outcome's the same. And I had a friend one time in the business. He's passed away too. I had a lot of friends that passed away.
We
Um,
get to that age where
yeah,
they
I know.
do.
But he used to say, and you got to get your head around this a little bit, but when your outgo exceeds your income, the upshot is your downfall.
True.
Clever, very
Very,
clever.
very
And
true.
so, like for me, I've developed a lot of little one-liners like those things. There is no income you can earn that you're not capable of outspending.
Hmm.
They're truisms. You
Yes.
cannot argue them because they
No.
are the truth. But that came with time. And those 200 people I assisted with their businesses, I got out as much out of it as they got
Of
out
course.
of it themselves.
The
Because,
teacher should always be learning.
oh, I'm always learning. And
Yes.
so I haven't arrived, and that's why I'm still working. I love it, and I learned something. I'm a seminar junkie. I stay connected professionally in my business with seminars and webinars, and
Hmm.
and I always come away with one little extra nugget. Sometimes it's a nugget I already had. I just had to dust it off and renew it.
Yes.
But there it is again. Oh, I
Or
forgot that one.
reapply it in a different way,
Oh,
right?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So, like I say, in my business, there's a lot of ego, and a lot of these guys talk like they're the end all be all.
Hmm.
I feel sorry for them because they're doing their clients a disservice.
But
You know?
there's another thing that they do is they make you feel a fool or guilty. How did you get yourself into this situation?
Oh,
And then make people feel bad. It happens along life. It happens to more of us than not. I mean, how many millionaires have been a millionaire before and then lost it all for bad decisioning and or not planning? And go, they've made the next million, but did you plan to keep this one? Did you plan to plant the seeds on this one? And
uh,
we learn through trial and tribulation, but the last thing we need is somebody being condescending and telling us that we're idiots for something we don't know. But we've also got to admit, I don't know. This is not
that's
my
right.
field of expertise. Help me lay out that plan that is easy to follow. So then it just becomes a part of my everyday routine and it's a no brainer. But if you don't know, you don't know.
That's right. And so, yeah, you need, like I said, I don't go to my mechanic because I
Mm-hmm.
pulled a tendon, and you go to the right sources. And I don't have all the answers, but one thing I realized when I got into this business, I remember my wife chastising me. I paid my $1,600, got a big block of books. I did it all by correspondence. And I opened up the book in the very first paragraph. I couldn't get past it. After 6 days, she says, "You're either going to do this or you're going to go find something else to do." I said, "Yeah, you're right." This paragraph, I'm going to paraphrase because, that was 30 years ago. It said, "Welcome to the world of finance. The profession you have chosen can be compared to that of a surgeon." And I thought, ooh, aren't we all full of ourselves? But then
Mm-hmm.
they went on to say, "A surgeon knows within a day or two after he performs his skills, prognosis of those efforts, you know." But they said, the career I was choosing could impact a person's life probably to the same degree as surgery, but it might be years before we know if you did your job right, Michael. I
Right.
thought, wow, do I want that stress and pressure? I
Uh-huh.
thought it and thought, and I decided to go ahead. And there's no financial situation I will not step into. I'm not afraid because I've insulated myself. And that was the commitment I gave to myself back then. I will seek out the best of the best in the business, lawyers, accountants, whomever,
Mm-hmm.
estate plan, there's the Estate Planning Council of Canada. I worked
Just
with the
keep
vice.
learning.
I
Mm-hmm.
worked with the vice president one time on some presentations. Brilliant, but I have the resources available to meet any financial situation. I might not have the answer, but I know where to get the answer.
And that's the point. It's not about ego, I know it all.
Mhm.
It's about, I
Well,
know this. There's a question here I don't know. So therefore, I'm going to ask someone else who may know better. And that
sure.
is what anybody tells you they know it all, they're full of it. I'm
No,
sorry.
that's right. And so I've got clients that come in like I am very, very impressed with um their financial prowess. And in some cases, wow, you know, I'm learning something. Carry on. Well, how do you do that? Yeah, I like that. I'll pick up on that. That's a new tool in my box. So it's
Yeah,
reconnaissance,
exactly.
reconnaissance.
A
I love,
willingness to learn, never sit complacently
no.
on what you know. There is always something coming up. And as I said, the best teachers, those that learn from the students along the way.
So
How
when
do
I,
people, how
so
do
when I,
people,
when I talk about, helping the people, my greatest joy is seeing the success in others. If
Mhm.
I had a hand in that lady that I talked about that had, she was earning $2,000 a month and paying $2,900 in debt service.
Mhm.
I got her out of that. I don't know. I think it was 27 hours of my time into making it all happen. I got that much out of it. There's nothing in it for me, but the
Satisfaction.
satisfaction.
Mhm.
Well, about a year later, I get a phone call from a friend of hers. I never met. She said, "You never met me." I spent about 2.5 hours with her and her husband. They they were an elderly couple worth millions, and they needed something like $5 million of insurance. They owned apartment buildings and properties and whatnot, the refinancing. And one of the biggest commissions I ever made. I'm not bashful about saying that. So what goes around comes around.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
spent about 2.5 hours with them and 27 hours with the other lady. And so
And
I,
the thing is, if it's always like, what's in it for me? Well, what should be in it for me? I've made a difference to someone's life, and that will always come back to you in other ways. But so if somebody wants to reach out to you and like, because I know you don't have a website anymore, but they've got a question, whether it's personal, whether it's business, how do people reach out to you? And do you have social media where they can reach out to you as well?
I prefer is phone call or emails. I will get back to you. And I am very good at returning phone calls.
Do you wish to give your phone number over line, or you prefer people to go to the show posting?
No, no, I'll give you my phone number. It's 250-816-2002. And I'm on LinkedIn and I'm on Facebook and I'm on whatever. But
And of course, the email is mfurlot@gmail.com.
that
And of
is
course,
correct.
and the link to the Facebook is Michael Furlot, like
Yeah.
Furlot. And you can reach him there. And if you've got a question or you've learned something today, or there's a comment that you want to make, please do reach out because this is how the conversation starts. Again, you don't know what you don't know until you know.
And what they know.
And like today, just realizing, gosh, yes, I do need to plan. I didn't think about that. Or that's a good idea. Where do I go from here? So just reach out, have a phone call, have a chat. Now, remember, he is in Canada. So, of course, he knows Canadian finances. If you're elsewhere in the world, the principle will be the same, but the maybe the logistics might be slightly different. But if it's a general, how do I plan? I suppose that can be for anywhere, can't it?
So and good point to cover here too, Sarah, is that um, I've got clients that are in Ontario and across Canada, and I've hooked them up with other advisors or planners in their geographical positioning now, um, because I like to do FaceTime with my clients,
Mhm.
and so I could give you an example. Last year, um, I had six clients referred to me from the interior of British Columbia. Never met these people, did some really good business with them over the phone, back and forth. And so I decided to take a road trip. I thought, better meet these people.
Mhm.
And they were very satisfied and happy for the work I had done. Um, I've got a good broad client base. Majority of my clients are retired now. We've done all the financial planning, the estate planning. They're in the retirement, and so I
You
do
still
have.
got to manage your money, and even more so today because you know what you think is going to be enough to last you until your demise. With the way inflation is going, isn't always the case. So, the more mindful we are, and the more we know, and instead of panicking, right, ask the expert, and that's what it's about.
But
So,
you're also seeing on the media these days a lot of life insurance, life insurance, life
yeah,
insurance. Oh, no medical requirements,
right.
guaranteed this. Well, these are all legit. Most of them are legit. Um, but I remember early in my career, I forget one of the big national accounting firms said one of the best kept secrets in the financial world is the insurance is the life insurance industry. And it's just not life insurance. We can use that as a financial tool that can really supplement and our income in our retirement and still protect our estate. That cottage on the lake I mentioned earlier,
Hmm.
life and life insurance can be used to pay that tax man to keep that in place. But
Right.
it doesn't have to cost you an arm and a leg. It's nickels on the dollar basically if we do it young enough. Um,
And
I
that's the
could
thing
do.
is if you're young, this is something you need to implement and it becomes part of your pattern. and plan for the rest of your life. If you're middle-aged and you're looking at retirement, even if you are in retirement and you're knowing how to manage and navigate in this, in this turbulent world right now, it's never too late. So, could reach out to you by email or by LinkedIn or by Facebook or give you a call. And from there, you will know how to help them or, what needs to be done.
And one area that's often overlooked, especially when we're in retirement and we're looking at the estate plan, is your church or charity of choice. Bring them into your estate plan because that'll mitigate a lot of the taxes.
Mm,
And I say to people, do you trust the government to manage your money after you're gone, or would you like to manage it from the grave?
right.
Right? And that's where that by doing charitable gifting and so on, it's big business. And there's rules about, again, you
So
need
you
to know
never
the
heard of
rules.
that, folks. There's another thing that you've learned today. There's an awful lot of things you've learned today. So don't forget to share the show, have the conversation with friends and family, reach out to Michael and start the conversation there because there's so much that we need to know. For as long as you live, you're going to be dealing with money for as long as you live. So you
That's
may as
right.
well know how to manage your money, that it's working for you, that you can afford to live and not get into debt where that debt is chasing you to the end of days. So thank you so much for sharing, Michael. We've learned a lot here today.
Thanks for the invitation, Sarah. Very much appreciated. Thank you.
So, folks, don't be afraid of money. It's your friend. It's there that keeps the roof over your head. It keeps the oxygen going. It gives you all the pleasure you need in the world. All you need to do is know how money works and let that money work for you. So, until next time, bye for now.
Give me a call.
We hope that you enjoyed the show. There are so many more for you here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. Just go to the podcast tag at the top there and you will see all the many genres and all 3,000 shows ready for your listening. We are here to serve you, to help you on your journey of life, and we know that through inspiration it begets invitation. We are supported by you, the listeners, and those that we interview. Anything that you can spare us in donation would be greatly accepted, and we do hope that you enjoy the next show.